Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to another episode of Last Stop Waterfowl Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Robry, and I'd just like to take this time to welcome all of you back to the show, guys. We are getting close. We have duck season just around the corner for those of you who love some good early season teal hunting. We are just a couple of weeks away. I know here in Louisiana, guys, we open up right at the beginning of September. And most of you across the United States and the flyways, you guys are also getting ready to kick off teal season. So I'm looking forward to this episode. This is kind of the inaugural waterfowl season episode that we're doing to kind of kick things off for the 2022 season here on Last Stop Waterfowl Outdoors. And as always, we have a guest with us just about every episode, guys. And one of my good friends, you guys that listen to the show, you're very familiar with him. Mr. Roland Cortez is going to be joining us here on this episode, guys. We're going to be talking a lot of waterfowl as far as looking at this upcoming season, starting with teal season. They had numbers released this week from Delta Waterfowl and Ducks Unlimited. So that's some interesting data that came out this week as compared to 2019 when they did the last survey. And we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about Roland. He just took a trip up to Arkansas in the last month or so for a duck calling, spec calling contest. We're going to run him, let him run you guys through that as far as how that went and how he did and kind of what all goes into those big events like that. So we have lots to talk about on this episode. And I thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us and listen to two average Joes talk about waterfowl hunting and the outdoors here. So thank you so much again. But without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's bring Roland in with us. And we're going to get started, guys. We're going to kick this thing off, and we're going to start talking waterfowl to get you guys kind of fired up for the season, hopefully. So here we go. Hey, Roland, welcome, buddy. How you doing this morning?
Morning, Jacob. I'm doing fine, man. It's Sunday morning.
That's right. Nice. It's Sunday morning. That's exactly right.
Morning. It ain't raining yet, so can't really complain about it.
Not yet, at least. It seems like South Louisiana, we get the rain every day, and a lot of places aren't getting rain right now, so they looking for rain.
Yeah, and that's pretty much looks like a lot of places that's been in a drought, like Texas, gonna get a lot of rain next week. Even parts of Arkansas. Everybody needs a little rain this time of year.
That's crops right, man.
A lot of people are harvesting their rice right now, so maybe too much rain might not be good to harvest rice.
No, that's right. I grew up in them rice fields, and too much is not good, but it's a fine line on what you need as far as the rice fields go. But I know here in South Louisiana, we've been getting it pretty good all year, and that's hopefully going to be good for us for the upcoming waterfowl season. It don't look like we're in any kind of shortage of water, that's for sure. So, but man, how you been doing? I know the last time we talked, I'm going to say this, by popular demand, we brought you back for the kind of, I was telling the listeners, this is the inaugural waterfowl kickoff episode kind of for the 2022 season. And man, every time we get you on, we get a lot of people that enjoy the episodes with you on. So thank you first and foremost for coming back. I know you have come on numerous episodes with us, and we always appreciate it. But the listeners love to hear what you got to say, Roland, and I know we're going to talk about some stuff today.
Well, I'm glad that I can contribute to everything. I may not be a biologist, but I know a little bit about it.
That's right. You in the field. So some of the best reports we could give are the guys that are actually in the field constantly, and you one of those guys, man. So since we last talked, kind of what's been going on, man? What's been as far as I'm sure in the summertime you working full time, you have a full time job. You're not guiding obviously in the summertime, but what's been going on with you, and kind of what's the plans for this upcoming duck season?
I have a. Just working, just waiting on duck season. Besides that, I had a bunch of home projects to do this summer, kind of what I did, besides work. And, now we're 14 days away from dove season. So we're going to be dove hunting pretty soon. And I'm looking forward to that. And, teal season right around the corner. I seen my first little flock of teal on the 15th or the 16th. So I was pretty pumped up about that.
Yeah, that when you start seeing those first few flocks of teal, man, that gets everybody kind of fired up. I know I did some scouting last week. Me and Jackson went out. We went out to some public land areas, and we saw a couple of teal. But I have a good friend of mine who lives on public waterway not too far from here, where we are in Gonzales, and he told me he's been out in the lake. He's retired. He's been out in the lake this week, and he said he saw numerous flocks of teal showing up. So that's a great sign, man. That'll get you fired up pretty quickly.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and there's more to come if we can get some more little north wind from the north and another full moon. We'll get another push of teal. I mean, I don't want to see my teal here too early. You know, I like to see a few, but I want that biggest push to come when the season's open.
That's right. That's right. Because those of you who teal hunt on a regular basis, you know, every year, you know that them teal could be here one day and then they're gone the next. So, like you said, you don't want to have them show up too early, Roland, because we need them right around the opener for the season. So that's something. Hopefully, you know, we haven't got that. I wouldn't say that real cool spell yet, or that, you know, enough dip in the temperatures to make a huge difference yet. But I'm hoping that comes in maybe the next week and a half to 2 weeks here in South Louisiana.
And another thing, you know, we're in August, man. I mean, we're in prime hurricane season, so I'm hoping them things stay away this year. I'm not looking forward to another one.
Man, don't you jinx us like that, Roland. Don't even bring that up right now.
I'm trying not to, but it was brought up the other day. I said, hope them things stay away.
Yeah. You know, they talking about all this, how it's not been real active in the tropics this year. They got something with some African dust they talking about coming off of Africa that's kind of keeping it quiet out there. I don't know all about that type of stuff, but all I know is we don't need another hurricane like we had last year around this time, you know?
And the later we get into August and September, man, you know, we live in South Louisiana, and it's that time, you know. I mean, it's been a weird year as far as weather. We were dry, hot. Then we got, into July and August, we've been a wet month. It's just been a bit weird years. I mean, as far as weather-wise.
Yeah, it has. And to be honest with you, you know, as far as temps go, August hasn't been as hot as it normally is. We've kind of had it, you know, not too bad.
You know, I was spoiled. You know, I mean, we had these cool days, and then last week we were back up in the upper 90s, and we were back in these heat warnings at work. And I said, man, I don't miss sometimes.
I know. Well, I don't think any of us want too much part of that either. So, well, I know you mentioned you've been working quite a bit. That's your normal summer schedule. But, man, recently you had some time to break away and head north a little bit. You went up to Arkansas for an event that was going on up there. So kind of let's talk about that a little bit, man. Where'd you go and what you were participating in? Let's talk about it.
Well, Delta had the Duck Hunters Expo in Little Rock, Arkansas. This is the first one they ever had. They may have had 400 vendors there. So, you know, pre-COVID, you know, these shows were going around all over, but, you know, Delta brought it back. It was a really great show. I met a lot of people in the industry that I haven't seen in a few years. And I worked the booth with Bill with Riceland and American Waterfowlers. So I got a chance to meet a lot of people and talk ducks like I like to do.
Yep. Yeah, it's good to see these shows coming back, Roland, man, because after a 2-year layoff, everybody's kind of ready to get back out there and kind of get back to, you know, doing the shows again. And you're starting to see a lot of the shows across the country come back now. And that's a great thing, man. It's good to see that happening again. And I know everybody's ready to get out there and participate in it. But it seems like you still have that passion for these calling contests. I know you kind of made your name coming up. For those of you who don't know Roland that well, Roland has made a hell of a name for himself throughout the years as far as getting involved in the duck hunting community, coming up in calling contests, kind of got you start, right, Roland, as far as that goes into the duck hunting community and from calling, you know?
And that's pretty much, you know, kind of how I got started, man. You know, just wanted to be a better duck caller and started practicing a lot, started entering some contests. Lost a bunch, but I've also won a few, and I'm very passionate about it. I don't do it much anymore. I only blow in a handful of contests a year, and this is one of them, which in the world cut down contest, which I've done really well in the past, but I haven't really practiced much, man. I kind of just picked up my call a little bit and blew a little bit before the contest to do a little practice. The best I done was in 2019. I was first runner-up in the World Cut Down, which I was only, beat by a point. So it wasn't bad. When I practice a little bit, I actually do pretty good at these contests. And I was happy with the way I ended up in this contest. I ended up in 6th place. I blew 5 rounds. I was in 2 call-offs. So I was happy. We had 34 callers in this contest, some of the best cut-down callers in the world. So, I was very happy with my placing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, especially for not practicing. It sounds like you had a pretty good showing. But I assume it's kind of like riding a bike. You kind of never really forget. You go back to what you normally do, and you do the best you can, at that time. But these big calling contests, Roland, for those of us like myself, I've never been involved in or been to one of these big events like that. Kind of walk the listeners through what goes into that as far as how's the format of that. Is there multiple rounds that you got to go through, or how many people are typically involved in one of these big calling contests like you're in?
In a contest, there's 3 rounds.
Okay.
There's first round, second round, third round, and then they're going to score you first round 70 to 80, second round 80 to 90, third round 90 to 100. So an average base is a 75 first round, and that'll get you a 224, 225, and that's really pretty good, which I'm probably a little high right there on it, and that's kind of how they go. You go through rounds, and they'll cut people as your scores get low. If you got a low score, then you'll get cut. Which they throw out your high score and they throw out your low score. So you got 5 judges back there. So that's kind of how it goes. And it goes up through there, and the highest score makes it to the next round. Which I scored really good the first round. I think I was there a 228 or a 229, which was really good, which had me in the in the top 5 the whole time. Which I think the best was a 230 first round. So I was right there and did the same thing, but I was kind of tied up going into everything. And then the first call off, it was 4 callers in the call off. Then after that, it was 2 of us. So we battled it out. And I think my buddy Devin got me by 2 points, 3 points, which his flow was better than mine. My flow wasn't that good after blowing 5 times. So, I'm getting a little slow in my old age there.
Yeah, you're moving a little slow, man. I know what you mean there. Trust me.
Them young boys got some lungs on them.
Yeah, they do. They got all that air, man. When you're young like that, you got that air. So, yeah.
I want to say I was the oldest one blowing in the contest. They didn't really have any older guys than me blowing in it. It's a young man's sport.
So what kind of calls were you blowing, if you don't mind me asking? Let's tell me what you're blowing, brand wise, and what kind of call.
In a cut down contest, you have to have a cut down contest. If a lot of people are familiar with it, they're based off of an oaked D2 or an oaked keyhole.
Okay, one of the classics.
You can't just blow any call, and it has to go by specs. So a lot of times, they'll check your call to make sure that it meets the spec of a cut down calling concept, which everything is based off of a modified PS oak, which there's a lot of people that cut them and modify calls to blow. So I was a good friend of mine, Devil Singleton, up in Bernice, Louisiana, builds a call. It's called Singleton Game Calls. And he makes cut downs, he makes spec calls, and he makes a regular J-frame duck call. And I was blowing his original in the contest, which this is only the second time I blew this call. I blew it at Simmons back in May, which I did really good the first round. I got cut the second round because I had a little bobble in my comeback, which was probably my fault because I didn't put the air. I put too much air in it at the wrong time, which we got that taken care of. Me and Devin worked on it, and we got it fixed to where that didn't happen again. So going into the Worlds, I was ready for it. I just wish I'd have practiced a little more.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, Singleton Game Calls, that's a brand that I've heard of, some good things that people have talked about, man. You know, what fascinates me, Roland, is there's so many damn companies here in Louisiana that make phenomenal duck call products. You know, there's a lot of great companies, man, you know?
There is. I mean, when it comes to duck calls, man, there's a lot out there, you know, and I'm still, you know, learning about these calls, and I'm actually trying a lot of new calls. And man, look, there's a lot of really good duck calls, really good duck and stack calls out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's just
agree with that, man. A few years ago, I was thinking, I said, you know, when I was kind of getting into the whole last stop waterfowl concept and getting ready to get that going, and I was thinking about getting into the duck call side of it a little bit too. And man, when I looked around and I kind of did some research, I looked into all the companies that were out there, and I said, you know what? That's a market. I said that that is heavily saturated, you know, and there's so many companies making calls now. That's just something I decided to stay away from. I figured I'd let the experts kind of handle that. But yeah, we're here in Louisiana, man. We got a lot of great talent. We talked about that before, but especially when it comes to, you know, traditional duck calls, you know, goose calls, that type of stuff. You talk about companies, you know, like Falk's Game Calls. You have Duck Commander, been doing it for years, and many, many others. Now you got Mr. Dale Bordelon with Bayou Beast, that's been making a big name for himself over the last couple of years. And like you said, Riceland's been doing it a long time. There's a lot of great companies out there. And I know you've been blowing or been working with Riceland for some time on the goose and speck calls, correct?
Yeah, Bill. I mean, Bill Daniels is a good friend of mine. He makes, you know, some of the best spec calls, you know, I've ever used, and there's a lot more out there. But Bill's just been good to me, and he's a new line of duck calls coming out that are really good. I mean, it just came, and you know, Bill makes some really good calls, and I try to stay local with my company. I mean, Bill's right there in Hayes, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Which I try to keep them local, and I mean, I blow a wide assortment of other calls. You know, I blow Duck Commander, I blow, you know, I've got some old folks, but them two are probably what I use on a daily basis, and you know, they get the job done for me. So I stick with them, and you know, and you got a good company behind you. I can call these guys and say, man, look, I need this, I need that, and they'll send it to me as quick as they can get it out to me, and that
That's
goes
right.
along.
Yep, it goes a long way, and it's some great relationships, you know. And we like that too because, you know, we get a lot of people. They'll contact me and they'll say, "Man, what kind of calls do y'all blow down there in Louisiana, or what are y'all using?" You know, especially a lot of younger hunters. You know, they'll reach out and they're, you know, with social media nowadays and all that type of stuff, they'll reach out and they'll say, "Man, you know, what do y'all?" I guess they kind of, you know, look for advice if they're getting into the sport and that type of stuff, and they'll ask us what we blow, and I tell them, I say, "Man, I blow multiple different brands." You know, we do have a relationship with Patrick Erkfitz over at Beaver Creek Game Calls. He's been good to us as far as the relationship goes. He makes some good products that we like. But that's not, I tell people, I say, that's not all we blow. You know what? Like I'll move certain calls in and off the lanyard throughout the season, depending on where I hunt or kind of what the ducks are responding to, that type of stuff. So we'll use, you know, brands like Bayou Beast and other brands like that as well. So we're not specific to one company just to say we're using that product. We are versatile with different brands, and I think most hunters, we got to be like that.
Don't limit yourself, man, because there's a lot of good products out there that get the job, you know, that'll do just as good a job as these big major companies.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Roland. I really do.
Jacob, you know, I try to buy my sporting goods local, everything, you know, just to keep it in the state.
Yep. That local support's big. That is, you know, supporting them local businesses now, especially with the way things are price wise. And man, you know, I was talking about shotgun shells yesterday with a good friend of mine, and those of you who hunt, you know how hard it has been to get shotgun shells over the last 2 seasons. And man, I've been looking around a little bit lately, and kind of all year long throughout the summer, rolling, and it looks like it ain't going to be much better this year. If you're in need of some shells, you better jump on it early this year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking local, I mean, I know Simmons Sporting Goods in Bastrop had a lot of ammo. Even a local store right here in the Baton Rouge area, Bowie Outfitters had a good supply when I went last week. I actually picked up a couple boxes of low brass steel shot, because that's pretty much what I hunt teal with. And they had pretty good supply of ammunition at boat. I mean, I didn't see any 410, but there was a good bit of 12 and 20. I seen some 28 gauge. I mean, I don't know how much they had, but they had a little. They had some on the shelf.
You know, you mentioned 410. That's kind of funny. I had a guy reach out to me, and he said through social media, and he said, "Man, he said, look, I'm trying to get my son into duck hunting. He's been coming with me the last 2 years." He says, but he hasn't shot, you know, a shotgun. He wasn't ready to shoot yet. He says, but this year, he says, man, I'm trying to get him set up to kill his first duck this year. And he said, I bought him a 410, not realizing how hard it was to get 410 shotgun shells. He said, and steel shot, he could not find steel shot 410 anywhere. And he told me, I said, go to places like Boss Shot Shells, go online, go to Simmons Sporting Goods. I kind of recommended those places. And I mentioned to him Bowie as well, because Bowie does a pretty good job of keeping certain things in stock. And he told me, he says, man, he says, I'm just going to say it like this. He says, if I can't, the guy straight up told me, he said, if I can't find any kind of steel shot, he says, I'm not going to stop him for money. He said, he's going to have to shoot lead. He said, in a 410 shell this year. And I was laughing. I said, man, you might not want to do that. He says, well, man, I can tell you this. He says, I'm not going to deny my son the opportunity to hunt. He says, because we can't find shells, you know, for him out there. And that's a dilemma a lot of people are probably faced with a young hunter right now, because I know with my son, my youngest son, Hudson, he's at 8-year-old kid right now. And I'm trying to get him into it. And thank God I had a little bit of steel 410 that Jackson was shooting a few years ago. Not much of it, you know, left over. But I have some that he could use enough to, you know, maybe shoot his first bird this year or whatever it is. But if you're trying to get a youth hunter into it right now and you're thinking about buying a shotgun for him, man, a 410 might not be the way to go right now.
No, I'd go with a 20 gauges. Even the 20 gauge ammo was a little tough last year, but I'm glad to see there's a jump on it out there.
Yeah. And I bought a 20 gauge last year for me to hunt personally with, a new one. And I was able to find some, Roland, but it was a little tougher on 20 gauge definitely than 12 gauge, you know?
Yeah, last year was, but I'm stocking up a little bit at a time. Because look, I love my 20 gauge. I've hunted with it, I don't know, probably 50 days out of 60 last year. I mean, I love my 20 gauge, and I'm looking forward to shooting it again. I'm going to shoot it for doves. I'm going to shoot it for teal. I even killed a few speckle bellies with it, but this year I'm looking to shoot more speckle bellies with my 20 gauge.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I enjoyed it, man, over my 12 gauge last year. When I bought it, I took it on some hunts, and it's just, man, the reduction in weight that you got on the guns, the handling, the carrying, the swing, everything about the 20 gauge I really liked. And that's something that's been kind of catching on more and more with a lot of experienced hunters over the last couple of years. You're reading about guys that are going to 20 gauge shotguns instead of their 12 gauges. And man, after hunting with it, Roland, to be honest with you, I see some of the advantages of going to a 20 gauge.
It has no recoil.
Yep.
You know, and I don't shoot 3.5 anyway. I don't see nothing out there that I need to shoot a 3.5 inch shell at. So, you know, 20 gauge and a 3-inch, a 2 or a 4, depending on what I'm shooting. Preferably, man, if I'm shooting ducks, I want to shoot a 5. But they're a little hard to find. 4s are easy to find, and a 2. So if I'm shooting geese and ducks, I'd rather shoot a 2-shot just for the geese. But I'm not scared to shoot a speckle belly with a 4 if it's close enough. But 4-shot is pretty much what I like to shoot ducks with.
Yeah, I'm still old school too. I like that. I remember Dad always shooting number 4s, and I know things have changed some, but I still look for that number 4 if I could get it, you know?
Now, if I'm shooting little ducks like teal, man, I like 6s and 7s, but you can only low brass. Now, Boss makes a number 7 shot in tungsten, man. That's gonna be a bad duck, a bad duck load.
Yeah, that tungsten don't play around, man. I've hunted with that a couple of times, and I actually have an old school, and I may have told you this before, but I purchased a couple of years ago an old school Ithaca, crack barrel, double barrel, and that's what I've been looking for to kind of get into some 20 gauge tungsten, which that's even harder to find, to be honest with you. I checked Boss's website all season long last year, and it was sold out all year long, but I haven't got to hunt with it yet. And I'm kind of disappointed with that. I wanted to make an old school hunt with it, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I try to do too. My dad gave me his old 1100, which I can't shoot steel shot of it. So I'm going to shoot some balls out of it this year. all I want to do is shoot a limited speckle belly with it. So if I can do, I know I will. I'll be done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Hey, and a lot of people are interested when they hear us talking. They like I talked about a while ago. They have questions. So brand wise, what's Roland Cortez have brand wise? What kind of shotgun do you shoot? What I know you mentioned maybe alternating between a couple of different guns and stuff, but what's the brand of gun and what kind of model do you shoot, Roland, throughout duck season?
Benelli, I shoot a Benelli Super Black Eagle. As far as my 12 gauge, which I've been having it for, 25 years, something like that. And I bought my oldest son a 20 gauge a few years ago, which is a Stoger. And, he moved up to a 12. And so I still shoot that 20 gauge Stoger. And I like the 20 gauge Stoger. I mean, I put many rounds through it. I shoot a Pattern Master Anaconda full and a mod through it during hunt season, depending on the weather. And I've had any complaints with the 20 gauge Stoger. I mean, it's ejected 2 3/4, 3 inch, and I'm very bad on not cleaning guns because I like to see how far I can push a shotgun. So I didn't clean it much, and I mean, it never misfired, it ejected all year. No matter if it was rain, sleet, snow, mud, it kicked the shell out. So I'm happy with that Stoger.
Yeah, that's actually the 20 gauge that I purchased last year. I went to Cabela's right here in Gonzales, and man, I ran across one that was in the gun library. If you ever been in there, any of you visited Cabela's, you familiar with the gun library? And they had one that they had purchased from a gun show or something. It was basically brand new, and I purchased it, and it was the Stoger 20 gauge Roland that I got. And man, that thing, I love it. It's been flawless for me. I'm gonna probably do a little squirrel hunting with that this year, but you know, I know we're talking about equipment here, and we kind of delving into that a little bit. But let me ask your opinion on something. I've had this question asked to me, and I want to get your take on it. Chokes. When we're talking about chokes, there's so many options out there nowadays. What do you see the biggest difference in going with an extended choke on a shotgun versus stock choke tubes and stuff like that? Do you think stock choke tubes still have a place in the market for waterfowl hunting, or do you think extended chokes is the way to go? Because you've done a lot of hunting all over the place. You've killed a lot of different species. Well, what's your thoughts on that?
This is my thought on it. Pattern your gun. Factory chokes are still really good. So pattern your shotgun, whichever choke patterns with the shell and shot you want to shoot, that's the choke that you shoot. Predominantly we shoot a lot of steel shots. So, I shoot a Pattern Master. For steel shot, I shoot the one with the spuds in it. That way there it'll catch that wad before the BBs come out and it doesn't shoot a string pattern. But man, just pattern your gun, see how well it shoots with that type of ammo, and you may not need to get an aftermarket choke, and then you may need one. You just got to pattern your gun. Now, when it goes to, like, if I'm shooting steel shot, I'm going to shoot an aftermarket choke, just because I like to choke with spuds. But if I'm shooting TSS, bismuth, or tungsten, the factory chokes probably work better than the aftermarket choke, and that's pretty much what I find patterning my gun.
So why you think that is, that when you shooting those specific shots that the factory chokes, what you find is the difference there?
Steel shot's hard, man. TSS, bismuth, and tungsten is very soft. It's kind of like lead. And back in the lead days, everybody shot either a fixed choke in your gun. You bought a gun with a full, and that's what you shot, or you shot the chokes that came with your gun.
Yeah, that's a good point, I guess. Then, yeah, because it is denser, so that does make a little bit of sense there. So,
pattern your shotgun with your factory chokes, and you go with the best one. If you're not getting the pattern that you want out of your chokes that came with your gun, then you try an aftermarket choke. There's a lot of them out there. Pattern Master, there's Carlson, there's Kicks. So there's a few brands out there, but pattern your gun with the chokes you have, and you go from there.
Yeah, the only issue I see nowadays over the last 2 years with trying to find that pattern for a specific load is hell, with shells being so hard to find, like we kind of talked about, man, you might not be able to use the same shells throughout the whole season if you can't find enough of them or have enough stocked up already. So you may be going between different loads. That would be the only issue I could see nowadays with that.
And then again, that's just something that whenever you buy that shell, if you have the time, like if you go to Academy and you pick up some monarchs, you never shot them before. If you got time, pattern your gun to shoot it on paper. Shoot one shell, see what it does, and then you move on.
Yeah, you just adjust the choke to the shell that you got there. So
then you also have to adjust your choke to your weather. I mean, if it's real windy, you may have to go to a tighter choke.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something most guys don't even think about. So that's a very good point there if you're trying to get the best pattern out of your gun. So, well, Roland, let's kind of delve into some of this information that kind of came out this week, man. We had the annual waterfowl population survey. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. It was released by Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl this week. And this survey basically was, comparing the numbers that they took this year over the last couple of months versus the survey that they did in 2019. Because if you remember correctly, with the pandemic hitting, the last 2 years, they haven't been able to accurately do a survey. And people were kind of waiting for this next survey to be done to see where we were statistics-wise, population number-wise. And you and I were talking about it before we got on the show here. And, if you look at the initial numbers, it seems like it's doom and gloom kind of type situation. But you had a kind of take on it that you were starting to tell me about. And I said, hey, I want you to kind of hold on to that thought and let's share it with the listeners on what you saw. Because there's multiple ways to look at that whenever we see these surveys. And some people go and they don't believe, anything from these surveys. They don't think they're accurate. They think that they kind of fudge the numbers on some situations. And, there's a lot of doubters. I'll say that. And if you are one of those people, that's perfectly fine. But as a waterfowl hunter that does it year in and year out, we have to kind of pay attention somewhat to these numbers. If it's just like scouting or anything else, you want to be educated on what's out there, what's going on, and kind of what feedback they're giving us,
And that's right, Jacob. When I see this survey come out, it's just a base for me, man, just to let me know how the breeding went. That's pretty much it, because it's hard for them to count every duck. I mean, North Dakota, South Dakota, ducks breed everywhere. So it's hard for them to count, but this is going off the Prairie Pothole region. But when I look at this, I just base this off of how many ducks they counted in the breed and the pairs that bred. So going back and look, yes, mallards are down minus 23%. Long-term average down 9%. So, I think in 2016, I did a little research on it because I've been debating a lot with people, and people talking about going back to 30-3 or a restrictive season and stuff like that. Mallards have got up to, I think, 11 or 12,000 brood pairs 1 year, which is, back in 2016 or something like that, which is really high. And, your gadwalls, they kind of went down. Pretty much a lot of them, except, your blue-winged teal and your shovelers. Redheads went up. But what's very mind-boggling to me is that scaup and your pintail have never recovered from the drought of the 80s or the point system. I don't know if a lot of people are old enough, but when it was the point system, a pintail was worth 10 points, so you could shoot 10 pintails.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now, there is talk next year of a restriction or a no pintail or a season within a season. And again, if you had a duck hunted earlier, for 2000-ish on up, we had a season within a season for pintails, just like we have for scaup. And looking at these numbers, redheads and camelbacks are below your pintail. So why would, when you can shoot 2 camelbacks and 2 redheads. Why would they close the pintail season? Because it's, 1,783. I know it's but pintails have kind of go up and down, up and down. And that's something that I need to ask a biologist on, because why? Because a pintail is a more prized duck than a redhead. I mean, I like shooting canvasbacks.
Yeah.
It's a prized duck to me. So why are these two you can shoot two and you can only shoot one pintail? I mean, or talking about closing the season on a pintail. I mean, that would be devastating to a lot of people in South Louisiana, California, where pintails are popular. So that's kind of got me mind-boggling, but there's so many. I mean, I was in a lot of conversation with people talking about going back to 30-3. I really don't think that'll help us. I mean, I really don't see it, because predators kill more ducks than what hunters do. So if you go back to 30-3, the predators are still going to be out there. And look, I'm all about conservation, but man, I just like to take as many days in the field as I can. I mean, I ain't got to shoot 6 ducks. I just like hunting all them days. The more days I'm out in the field and stuff like that. But when you look at this, man, it looks bad as far as duck numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, you lost 4,000, almost 5,000 breeding pairs from last year. But we were in a severe drought last year. We had no data for 2 years because of COVID. I was expecting it to be worse than this, to be really with you. When I seen these numbers, I'm like, it's not that bad. But man, when you look at your May pond counts from last year to this year, that's your silver lining. That's next year, man. I mean, that's what you got to look at. Yeah, I mean, it may not be much, +4, but man, as dry as it was last year up there, anything's a plus.
That's right. It's on the upswing, no matter what the plus is.
So when I look at these numbers, man, all I'm looking at is how many baby ducks are going to survive, or how many juveniles are going to make it south. So you look at this, you got 7,000, let's just say 8 or 10, let's put it easy, 10,000 pairs. If only one baby survives, that doubles it. But you got to figure more than that's going to survive. So when you could still have a pretty big fall flight, because ducks nest everywhere, man. So they didn't count every duck. The boreal forest, a lot of ducks go up there. So, but we will know better as duck season opens up in Canada, which it should be opening up. If it didn't open already, it should be opening up very soon, the next couple of days. So there is a silver lining to this, man. I mean, because I remember, I was in high school, which you were probably about that time too. I think 85 we went, or 86 we went into 30-3. So yeah. I hunted all my young days, all the way up into high school. And man, I didn't like them 30-3. Yes, they had a lot of ducks, but you had no time to hunt them. But even then, they had bad times. I didn't remember shooting 3 ducks every day, which we did a lot. And you got to pick your ducks because, more ducks made it south. But we had bad days, we had good days. And I'm not for a 30-3, which if we get it, I'll be happy for it. And I had somebody bring it to my attention where, you're speaking on a guy's point as a business. No, I'm not speaking it as a business. I'm speaking it as a hunter. I love to guide, but man, I hunt too. I have a day job. I work. Guiding is not my only job I have. Guiding is just something I do on the side. So as a hunter, man, I just want as many days in the field as I can. But I do see, if we continue, I can see a restrictive season happening within the near future. I don't think it'll be next year, but in the near future, we can see it, because sooner or later, we're going to go into a severe drought up there again. And we could get back to that point. But right now, we just got to enjoy it while we have it. Because when you get into a 30-3, everybody's going to, just like they do now, oh man, the season should have been a week longer, or the season should have been a week earlier. And that's why I like these 60 days for them. And really, I wish we can keep the 60 days and take away 2 ducks. I'm satisfied with 4 or 3 ducks, but continue the 60 days.
Yeah, and that's a good point you bring up there. Maybe keep that 60-day season, but then drop the limit down to 4. I think more hunters would be on board with something like that, Roland, than going to that 30 and that 30-day season. Because look, the 30-day season is not a popular option for hunters. It's just not.
You look at somebody like that works every day. You're only looking at 4 weekends because you're going to have 2 weekends in the first split, and because they're going to put the biggest part of the season in January. So you're going to miss a lot of prime hunting time in December, which I tell everybody after Christmas, you don't really get any more. We don't get no more big push of ducks unless we get a polar vortex from the north and it freezes all. I mean, most of our ducks come into the state early and they're coming in the middle of December. Anything after that is lanyard because, we don't really get a big push come January. You may get a push from different areas in the state, but you don't get a big push from the north.
Yeah, I know you mentioned last year when you were on previous with me, you said you need to hammer them as best as you can first split. You said because after the first split, you said it's gonna drop off. Pretty much the push of what we got here in Louisiana is gonna be what we got during the first split. And it's crazy. And I mentioned that because when I was coming up through the years, I'd always hear my dad and them say, hey, the second split's always better than the first split. The second split's always better. Now, we're not in the same time. It's different. We talk about that all the time, how different things are nowadays. But from what I saw last year, when you said that, it really had me pay attention to that last year. And I agree with you 100%. Last year, it panned out that way. That first split's when most of the birds made it their way down to Louisiana. And then as we got into, January, it just seemed like those birds that were here were either still here or they had, maybe even went back up the flyway a little bit. There wasn't new birds pushing in.
And there's so many variables, Jacob, man. Hunting pressure, weather, distribution of water here and there, man. And it all plays into effect with duck movement and migration. But, going back to talking about the 60 days, you can relate. Maybe some people can't, but 93, we were still, some people may not remember. We didn't have a teal season for a little while during the 80s, during the drought. I think it was 88 through maybe 93. Maybe we didn't have it. So 94, we went to 45 and 4 ducks. The population was going up, man. We were in 4 or 5 years of 30 and 3. Following year, we went to 50 and 5, which was 95. And then in 96, we went into 60 and 6, and this is what we're at today. So if you wasn't in your teens where you were hunting, some people don't remember that. If you're in my genre, being born in the 70s. Yeah. We wasn't fortunate like our dads and our grandfathers to be born when, all these ducks came to Louisiana and you can shoot them out your back door, But it looks like it's gloom with this, man, but you got to see the silver lining in it, And I'm going to say it like I tell everybody else. Support your organization, no matter if you like them or not. Support Ducks Unlimited. Join Ducks Unlimited. Join Delta. Support them, man, no matter what's your opinion on what you think they're doing. We need more habitat on the ground for more birds in the sky, no matter how you look at it. Look, we're losing habitat in South Louisiana and everywhere else. They're losing habitat up north to agricultural, corn, ethanol, man. It's a big, big deal right now. They're farming every piece of ground they can, man. Breeding habitat, grasses on the prairies are very, is what we need. So support Ducks Unlimited, support Delta Waterfowl, man, no matter what your opinion on them. They're there to help us. Without these 2 organizations and more, there'd be no ducks for us to shoot.
Yeah.
And they came when the droughts came in the 20s and 30s. Wouldn't have been for these 2 organizations, man, there'd be no ducks for us to shoot today.
Yeah, you're right. And I think a lot of people that, through the years, there's so many opinions on Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl. I've even done a show on that before talking about that. And I agree with you. And it's the truth. It's just the honest truth. Whether your thought is negative or positive about those organizations, for the grand scheme of conservation and for hunters, which go hand in hand, in my opinion, we need those companies or those organizations out there doing what they do, because like you said, you're not just competing against, you are competing against farmland. So when Ducks Unlimited goes in there or Delta Waterfowl goes in there and buys up some of that land, it's preserving that land for duck habitat, duck conservation, which produces more numbers, hopefully, down the road for us as hunters. So that's very, very important. That's a good point you bring up.
So, like I said, looking at the numbers, man, it may look bad, but there's always a silver lining. And like I said, them May pond counts, seeing that go up, man, is a plus. A thumbs up, as Phil Robinson would say. So it looks good, man. I mean, I'm very optimistic. I'm hoping there's a lot of juveniles make it south. So we have ducks imprint back on Louisiana. But I'm wishing for the best, man. I'm looking forward to it. We got dove season less than 2 weeks. Teal season not much longer after that. Then we get into squirrels and rabbits and early specklebelly season around Halloween. And man, we're in full hunting mode right now.
Amen.
I'm looking forward to it. A lot going on this year. At Dave's Bayou, and I'm looking forward to another hunt. Hopefully we can get together and make a hunt this year. Maybe do some teal hunting or something. Maybe get your kids up on a youth hunt. I'm working on some things. Hopefully we can get them on it.
Yep. And man, like you mentioned, teal season rolling right around the corner. We're a couple of weeks away from that kicking off. And if you're looking at, going back to the survey, if you're looking at numbers, I'm glancing at my phone right now, but blue-winged teal is up 19% on the survey, man. So that's something that's positive for all of us who want to get out there and do some early season teal hunting.
That is wonderful. Blue-winged teal are a very big duck here in South Louisiana. And, it looks really good for teal season, and even going into big duck season. Man, the teal numbers look great. I like them 16 days of teal season, so it looks very good. And you got your shovelers and your widgeons. Widgeon are not dropped that bad. Gadwalls kind of took a little hit, which gadwall was our bread and butter duck in South Louisiana. So, it's not that bad, but man, it's pintails that really, and them talking about closing the pintail season was really, I love pintails. Pintail and widgeon are my favorite ducks to hunt. And man, it'll be rough to go back within a season of the season or even a closed season, because we shoot a lot of pintail. Pintails are probably our number 2 duck last year, and we've seen hundreds of them on a daily basis, if not thousands. Man, it's going to be tough not to be able to shoot one, or wait till you have a 20-day season to shoot them, because that's probably what it's going to end up being. If I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and check my records, but I want to say it was a 20-day season for them. So really going to take a lick, man. And even California, where pintails are their number 1 duck. You're looking at a hit, man, when it comes to no pintails or a season within a season on a pintail, kind of like what they're doing on scalp. I think you can't shoot a scalp, for the first 20 days?
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of people have questioned that. Like they were not familiar, because look, being here in South Louisiana, we have a lot of diver ducks now, more and more every year. It seems like we get, and scalp play a big part of that, Roland, as far as what you see. And, I've had people question that. They'll talk to me and they'll say, man, why the hell did they limit us on scalp? Because, it seems like you make a hunt anywhere in the coastal regions and it's loaded with scalp. It appears that way. But if you look at the numbers of these surveys and kind of the trend over the years, that really isn't the case, isn't it?
Yeah. And Jacob, I want to ask you a question. When you were riding out in the marsh, how many mottled ducks did you see?
Not many. Not like we used to.
I'm glad that, and I wanted to bring that up to you, being that you rode in the marsh. I was out in the marsh, and I didn't see a whole lot of mottled ducks. And me and you were pretty close to the same age. You remember when you used to be able to shoot 6 mottled ducks.
Yep.
And it went to 3 mottled ducks. Now it's down to 1. And look, I didn't see many in the marsh. I mean, not very many to what I used to seeing, and I'm wondering if they're hurricanes and habitat loss that mottled ducks may be in trouble. I'm not sure that I didn't see many, but I've been noticing the last couple of years that I haven't been seeing a whole lot of mottled ducks, and I'm just wondering if they're in a big decline.
Roland, I would have to tell you 100%, in my opinion, they're in a decline because I agree. You don't see them like you used to see them. Like last season, I stayed in the marsh a good bit last year for the season. And I think Jackson and I killed a total of maybe 4 models last year that we shot. And it's just, we were in an area that typically over the years had numbers of mottled ducks, and we didn't see them, man. You just don't see the numbers of them. But, and I'm gonna bring this up. This is something that I thought was he was kind of interesting. This guy, where they were talking about whistling tree ducks, and we've talked about that briefly before. And a lot of people are talking about how much they're starting to see whistling tree ducks down here more and more each year. They're staying down here in Louisiana, and they had a guy that brought up a point. He said that from what he had done some research and he was reading kind of some information on whistling tree ducks. And he said that whistling tree ducks, from what he understood, competed locally against other ducks that stay here, like summer mallards, like, that type of species and other stuff. And he said that they're competing for nesting. He said, and he said, feel like they're starting to outnumber and almost become like an invasive species, the word he used. But, a lot of people jumped on him about that term. But I thought that was something interesting that he brought up there, with whistling tree ducks, maybe competing for nesting with other ducks like models that stay here year round. What are your thoughts on that?
What do you do with wood ducks? Because if you got a wood duck box and you got whistlers around, they're going to invade the nest. They're going to take the nest over and lay their eggs in there too. But man, they're everywhere. Them whistling ducks, I'm talking, they're everywhere. You go to the grain elevators along the river, there are literally thousands of them. And if you kept up with me early in the year, I was working at a place in Donaldsonville right next to the Mississippi River. And there was literally thousands of whistlers come to these ponds in the plant in the morning, man. It was clockwork. When the sun would come up, we were pulling up at daylight. They were coming from a grain elevator and it would fill that pond up. And I sat there one day when I wasn't doing nothing. I glanced at my binoculars and I did not see one bird with a band. I was very upset, man.
Yeah, because from what I hear, everybody that talks about them, they say, man, we killed them throughout the season. I killed a banded one. I killed them. Yeah, that's got to be the most banded bird that's out there apparently right now.
They ban a lot of them and with these whistlers. And they're very, like I said, you get along these grain elevators, and if you got a pond in your yard, I got a buddy of mine got a pond, man, they come every day. And he's got a couple of them with some bands in there, but they never make it till hunting season. They're always gone by that time. So, you ain't got to shoot them, because they don't stay here for hunting season. But they vary, man. I mean, there's a lot of them. I kind of wish, I know they had talked about it a few years ago that about maybe putting it in with our teal limit, but that never happened.
Yeah, so, I'd love to see that happen.
But man, they're good. They're a good eating bird. I mean, so.
Yes, they are.
They taste better than most other ducks.
They do. We actually killed some last year and the year before at our camp in the Chafalot Basin, and we cooked them, man, and they were phenomenal. I'll be honest, and I've mentioned that before on the show, But like I live in a neighborhood here in Gonzales, Louisiana. I have a big piece of swamp that's right outside my subdivision. And me and Jackson will get out there in the evenings. We'll watch wood ducks fly into there to roost and fly out in the morning. But now, Roland, we're seeing whistling ducks every afternoon flying into that same swamp that those wood ducks are going into. And we noticed that we can see more and more coming. And there's a couple of private ponds that are in people's yards that I'll cross going to work between here and Hammond, Louisiana. And they're just sitting there with all the domestic ducks every day. They're sitting around the pond,
But I mean, as far as habitat for the marsh is looking really good. Despite we don't get any tropical disturbances, marsh looks really good. I mean, there's a lot of aquatic vegetation, so it looking really good for the marsh. If nothing else happened, we didn't have a lot of high water this year, so the river stayed low. And I got a feeling places like Venice and Chaffley River, I got a feeling that the aquatics and duck potatoes and all that, I bet you it's looking really good down there, as far as habitat for us. But I mean, things can change daily here. So, but as of now, it looks very good for the migrating teal coming down.
Yeah, I agree. When I was riding last week, we were out in the marsh. It looked really good. A lot of food. Man, it's almost like the hurricane. I know it hurt a lot of people in different ways, but it's almost like it kind of purged. It purged some of these areas in the marsh last year to where this year they got some good, fresh, vegetation that's coming in. A lot of feed for the ducks from what I saw. So if we could get those numbers, it's in excellent shape from just the ride I took last week. Doing a little bit of scouting. And if it's like that across, all of South Louisiana marshes, then I think it could be something that be a really good thing for hunters this coming season.
And it will. Like I said, I see it looking good. I mean, habitat's good. So just wait and see what happens. We can only hopefully we get some early cool fronts. That way there, it'll set us up for a decent season again. But
that's right.
Gotta be optimistic, man. I mean, it didn't even open yet, so you got to be optimistic. You can't look at these numbers from this survey and be doom and gloom, man. We gotta roll with it. I mean, these numbers are not 100%. So
these numbers ain't gonna stop you, me, or any other person who's a waterfowl hunter from going, Roland. I promise you that.
Because if we were to go, which I just can't see us dropping to a big restriction that bad, but if we was to go to a 30-3, I mean, I'd have to hunt every day again just to hunt. But I mean, I'll take whatever the feds give us. That's up to them. They're the one that's going to do these numbers and with the season and also we'll see. I mean, it's just talk, but we'll see what happens next year. When things come around. But seeing these May pond counts up is the silver lining of this whole report.
Yep, and I think that's well said on your part. So, well, Roland, as we're wrapping up this episode, man, what's the plans for this year? Are we going to be as far as you go? Are you going to be up at Dave's Bayou? Kind of fill the listeners in on that. What's going on with you and with Dave's, or what you have available this year?
Man, we got a lot going on at Dave's Bayou this year. We acquired some new property and. We've got some other things going on. We got some big plans for in the near future. I don't want to reveal it all right now until it actually comes out. But there's a lot of big things going on at Dave's Bayou, and farm's looking really good. We had kind of a drought before they started getting rain. It's been kind of dry up in northeast Louisiana, but farm's looking good. They started cutting some rice, which it's about that time of year, and there's a good bit of doves around. We planted some sunflowers for doves, and there is some teal up there. So things are looking good at Dave's Bayou. I'm looking forward to a promising year. Business is booming up there, So I'm looking forward to it. I'll be up at Dave's in 2 weeks, back again, to dove hunt. So we did a couple big things last year. I know we don't catch the channel, and I want to bring this up, but if you go to Pilots for Patriots, we did a hunting show, and I'll send you that link where it was a charity hunt, and they'll tell you more about it. I'll send you that link if you want to watch it, or you want to post it somewhere. Jake, it gave a really good perspective of, Dave's Bayou, and how good the streets are to the local area around there. But man, things are looking, like I said, we got a lot of big things coming up. I don't really want to say too much because it's not really out yet, but we do have a lot coming on, and bookings are going good. I think we were 80% or probably 90% booked for the year. So I mean, business is good, but I have a lot. Speckled belly season's coming up. I'll go up to Arkansas a little bit and do some speckled belly hunts. I'm not really going to guide much. I'm going to go up there and I'm going to be a guest hunter. I've got some people that want me to come up and hunt with them and just be around them and blow my spec call and just talk birds with them. So I'm going to make some appearances up there. Periodically too early spec, but I'll be at Dave's Bayou all year. And periodically I've got some plans to go to Oklahoma, go to Kansas, do some waterfowl hunting. So, I mean, season's looking promising to me. As far as everything else, my health-wise and everything else going. So, but I've got a lot of big plans. Hopefully I can go through with them.
Well, good, man. That's awesome to hear. Sounds like you got a full schedule ahead of you. I know most of us that hunt throughout the hunting season, we have all that ironed out and planned. But so I know you mentioned that Dave's has some spots that are possibly open. I mean, if anybody's interested in booking a trip or looking into anything that's available for this season, Roland, where do they need to go to find that information?
I mean, you can go to the website, Dave's Bayou Outfitters and Lodge. I mean, you can look them up on Facebook, Instagram, or if you can't, shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll get you in touch with Miss Street, and that way there y'all can book y'all a hunt. With us, we got deer hunting, we've got waterfowl hunting, we've got sporting clays. So I mean, there's always something to do there. We have a pro shop and stuff, but man, we have a lot in the works, coming up. So it's definitely looking good. We're going to be an all-around outfitter in Northeast Louisiana. We're going to do it all pretty much year-round. There's going to be something to do there. So it's definitely looking good up there.
Well, good, man. Well, thank you for that information. Well, buddy, I enjoyed it. I know we're coming up on an hour now that we've been on, and as always, Roland, I appreciate you coming on. Like I mentioned, everybody that I talk to, they tell me how they tune into the episodes where you on, and they love hearing you talk about your experiences, your knowledge, man. You have a lot of knowledge out there. A lot of people, trust me, they're listening. They're listening. So if you ever want to help anybody, I know you are always willing to do so. And we talk about that on numerous episodes you've been on so far. Man, guys, reach out to Roland on social media. If it's youth, you're trying to get involved in learning how to blow a duck call, a goose call, any of that type of stuff. Roland is one of the most approachable people in the industry. You could reach out to him, and he's always been great about helping others. So, man, I just appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us, Roland.
Jacob, I appreciate y'all, man. I'm very humble, man. I was blessed to get to do what I do, and I say it like I say it on every show, man. I'm living the dream. I get to hunt 100 days a year, get to work with some of the best people in the business, and I get to hunt with, people, man. I love hunting with kids. I just love passing your tradition on. I mean, but if anybody's got any questions, I mean, they need help with something, I mean, calling, or just want to talk ducks, I mean, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, pretty much any social media platform, and I'm more than willing to help them or talk to them about what I see out in the field, or if they want, reports and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, I know we didn't do it last year, but man, I mean, coming up, we can do some mid-season, just a little 10-minute quick report, throughout the season, let people know what's going on. And I know we did some of it last year, but, a lot of things. And I appreciate everybody, tuning into your show, liking what I'm saying, and just I appreciate them listening to me. I know I'm not the best at it, but I try to be, and I try to answer everybody's question to the best of my ability. Like I said, I'm very humble that people tune into your show and want to listen to me talk. I can't thank you enough, Jacob, for letting me come on here and tell my story and just talk about what I love to do, man, waterfowl hunting.
Well, thank you again, buddy. And folks, there you have it, man. A great guy, Roland, just a good dude overall. And glad to have you on, man. We'll do it again soon, buddy.
Yeah, just let me know. Hopefully we can get together and make us a teal hunt. And then I'm going to work on trying to get your two kids to come up on the youth hunt this year.
Okay, sounds good. Let us know, man. Until then, take care, buddy. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank y'all. Talk to you later, Jake.
All right, bud. Well, guys, there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode that we brought to you with our guest, Roland Cortez of Dave's Bayou and Outfitters, man. Just an excellent guy, man. And every time, Roland hits me up on a regular basis, and he's like, hey, man, I want to come on the podcast. I want to come on the podcast. I want to talk to people. This dude just lives and breathes waterfowl hunting. A lot of many of us, And he is always wanting to come on, and the listeners, like I mentioned, tend to, like Roland coming on. He's almost become like a co-host of the show, in many aspects of it, because we have him on pretty regular now. And anytime he wants to come on, I have him on, man. I'm willing to bring him on the show to get you guys up to date on what's going on in the waterfowl world, what's going on here in the state of Louisiana. We talk local stuff as well. So he brings a world of knowledge, and he is just one of the good guys in the industry, which, he's genuine, and that's something that you don't always run into nowadays with people. He never has asked us for anything. He wants to just come on, have a conversation, talk waterfowl hunting. And at the end of the day, that's what makes these podcasts so awesome. And that's what makes my job enjoyable on these podcasts, is meeting people like Roland, talking waterfowl hunting, meeting all of you who give us feedback on the episodes. That's what we love to do, and that's why we do it, man. So it's awesome. We just enjoy the time spent with you every time we do an episode. So that's all we got really this week, guys. If you don't mind, check out some of our great sponsors that you heard the commercials for on this episode. We work with some great companies that we believe in their products. They offer great products to all of us as outdoorsmen. So check them out. We'd appreciate it. We have some promos going on with a couple of them. You've probably seen them scrolling across the bottom of the screen if you were watching us on our YouTube channel right here. But we'd appreciate it if you check them out. Let them know you heard about us or heard about them from us here at Last Stop Waterfowl Outdoors. And until next time, guys, we'll do it again. This is Jacob with Last Stop Waterfowl Outdoors Podcast. We'll talk to y'all again soon. Y'all have a good day.